Right. Good evening, Cowboys, Cowgirls, and Outlaws. Welcome to the Slick Sixguns Network. I am here with TUCOtheratt. We are here doing our weekly live stream, and we are going to be talking about his channel and getting to know him a little bit better, what he does, and hopefully we, have some good conversation. Just to remind everyone, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. And throughout the conversation, depending on what kind of questions we get, we'll bring it up on screen and talk about it, hopefully answer your question. So without any further ado, Tuco, how are you?
Little nervous. I'm not in control of editing when I do this. It's live.
Yeah. Well, I must say, I know that you had, I think you had some concerns with going live because you said you probably wouldn't talk that much. But
yeah,
I think I don't know. I think that was kind of alleviated when you did your own live stream last week, which I did watch, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Once we got started, it wasn't so bad.
Yeah. No, so the technology part was pretty good for you then.
Well, actually, getting through that was really just getting it going was hard. But once we got it going, then it was all good.
Good. Awesome. Yeah, and I think AR is on. So you guys just generally chatted about some stuff. What was your goal with the live stream? Just kind of get to know the community kind of thing, or what?
Like last week?
Yeah.
Just try to survive for an hour. Went an hour and a half.
Yeah.
AR really kept it going. He likes to talk, and so it made it easier.
Yeah. No, it's kind of these live streams get a little weird sometimes, but the good news is we don't have to edit anything, so that's a great part.
Yeah, that's true. Once it's done, it's done.
Yeah. So let's learn a little bit here about your channel, but we have to talk about you first. What is your background? Kind of as comfortable as you are talking to the audience about whatever you want, but what's your background, if you could explain it?
Okay, I'm a self-employed painter. I paint houses, and just gradually got into guns through my adult life, and I always liked the cowboy guns, the Western movies and stuff, and so just took the gun journey of starting out wanting to buy every gun there was, and then kind of get it narrowed down to the guns I really liked, and then later on, I really got into what I can do in shooting more than owning as many guns as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I got into competing and stuff, and just one thing has kind of led to another, and now I'm doing the YouTube thing. You getting that feedback?
No, I'm not getting any.
You're not getting any? Okay, that's cool.
No, you're good. Yeah. So, I mean, are there other things that you've done other than be a self-employed painter and get into guns?
I've been a realtor for a few years, like 2 years, not long, but mostly been a painter the whole time. And 11 years ago, I was able to move out of town and build my own gun range, and that's when it really got fun. Being able to shoot out my back door every day, and just kind of that makes the YouTube thing possible too. I built my little Western, like a saloon there that holds my targets on my range.
Yeah,
it's a scaled down building. If you back up far enough from it, it looks like it's full scale, and so it was pretty cool having my own range. That made me get into it more.
Nice. What? So you're up in Montana?
Yeah, eastern Montana.
Okay.
Yeah, the county has like 1,200 people. There's like 500 in the town.
Yeah.
And the next county over has like 10,000. So it's pretty sparsely populated.
So why'd you choose Montana, or have you been there kind of your whole life?
No, I've been there since I'm about 18, and I chose it just because I don't like being around people too much. The fewer the people, the better to me.
Okay.
like crowded highways and traffic, and it's not perfect here by any means. The weather's severe. It can be 108 in the summer and 40 below in the winter. It's some of the most severe weather. As far as it's hot and cold, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because of the isolation and just being able to be off by yourself. And
Gotcha. How many acres you
got? 2. I just got 2 acres, but I live up in the middle of an agricultural area. There's big farms all around me, so
okay.
I don't have. There's not like another neighbor 2 acres away and 2 acres away. I mean, there's nobody around here, so
Okay.
I'm really pretty isolated. It's pretty cool, pretty unique. Usually, when you buy a 2 acre property or something, you're going to have another 2 acre neighbor and a 2 acre neighbor, But here it's not like that, so it's pretty cool.
So you still got snow on the ground out there, or no?
It's just about all gone. There's a little bit here and there, but it's been hanging on until just the last week or so.
Okay, well, that's good. I couldn't stand to be in a place that had snow for 3 months straight, so
Yeah, it's been longer than 3 months. I mean, there's been snow on the ground since October, in deep, like 3 foot deep drifts and stuff. This last winter was really, really. It wasn't so cold that just the snow never melted and it kept snowing and building up, and it was a little bit worse than usual.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I'll be honest. Just with just the snow. I'm just not a fan of cold. I'm down.
I couldn't do the Texas heat that you do in the summer. The humidity.
The truth is I've been in hotter places, so to me this really isn't that bad. I lived in Georgia for a time.
Yeah.
I would never go back there ever again. Just
Are you in West Texas or East Texas?
No, Central.
So is that in the, because West Texas is dry, isn't it? And East Texas is humid, like Louisiana.
Yeah, I'm in the area that you would know more as people locally refer to it as the Hill Country, and
okay,
it's kind of the place to be when it comes to being in Texas. You get the countryside, and you're not really in the city, and things are a little bit more spread out, but you're not in the desert. 3 major cities here in Texas, 4, I should say, is El Paso, Austin, Dallas, and Houston. So, and we're near Austin area, but not terribly close,
Huh. So, is it humid there in the summer? Is it hot and humid or hot and dry?
Oh, it's hot and humid. But, it's probably about 60-70% humidity.
Yeah, it's not real bad like Georgia.
Yeah. So, but it's not that bad to me. We do get crazy weather. I would say that you would experience all seasons in one day here. But if we get snow, unless it was a couple years ago, which those who are Texans would know about, we call it the snowmageddon or snowpocalypse or whatever.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that. You guys got it
pretty much just shut down the entire state. We were covered in snow for about a week. But that was about as persistent as the snow was. But anyway, I like it. But you like your solitude, and out here we're pretty well separated from most people. We got some land too, so
How many acres do you have?
About 21.
That's a nice size for horses and stuff.
Yeah. AR American says, Slick, don't move to Michigan then. Not a chance. So
I lived in Florida for a while, and I hated that humidity. You have summer for like 7 months, 8 months there. It's hot and humid every day. And it's really tough to go shoot a match when it's that hot, because you're just, especially a cowboy match, because your cowboy clothing is a little bit heavier than, your general clothing, wearing a cowboy hat and stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know, it also depends on your body type, right? I mean, my body type is, I have a tendency to sweat a lot. Um, you know, make as many jokes as you want about that, but you know, I sweat a lot, so when I wear heavy clothing, it's usually drenched, especially in the summer. For other people, it might be a reprieve, but not for me.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah. Um, so I've been thinking how to ask this. I mean, but why did you choose the name TUCOtheratt? Explain that a little bit.
Okay, when Red Dead Redemption 1 came out, I think it was like 2008 or 9, I got on there and registered for the online play. And my daughter was like, oh, she would have been 14 or so. We both like Western movies and stuff. And right away I want to be Blondie. You know, Blondie was taken. And my daughter goes, you know, you're not really a Blondie. That's not you. You're more of a Tuco. You grumble. You hold a grudge. You know, you're Tuco. So I just kind of on a dare, I did it. And so then I played that game a ton for about 4 or 5 years. And then I used the TUCOtheratt thing on my email and social media and everything. And it just got to where I just kind of used it for everything. So when I did a YouTube channel, just on a reflex, I did it. And I never envisioned having a channel that was very big. I was just going to put a few videos on there and horse around a little bit. And now I kind of wish there could have been some better names, you know, but it's too late now.
I honestly thought the reason you chose that name was because you watched Breaking Bad or something, and
oh, that Tuco, it's a different Tuco.
Yeah, there's a different Tuco there, and so I thought you were kind of playing off of that. I don't know where the rat came from, but that's what I thought of when I heard your name of Tuco.
Well, that's the Good, Bad, and the Ugly movie.
Say again?
That's from the Good, Bad, and the Ugly movie. When they're going to hang Tuco, they're reading his aliases, and he was also known as the Rat.
Okay.
So that's where that comes from.
Got it. Okay. But yeah, that's pretty funny that you. I've had a couple people on here that have played Red Dead Redemption, so most of them are usually my age or a little older. But you know,
yeah, I was pretty old to be playing it that much.
Well, I mean, you know, unless were you an online player? Or you just played the story?
No, I was online.
Oh wow!
The posses and the gunfights and the what do they call it? Griefing other players and getting griefed. You know what I mean? When you kill a guy over and over again, or they kill you, or they gang up on the whole thing, the whole online, you know, deal. I was way into it. But on Red Dead Redemption 2, I played the single player and I don't know. I just kind of lost the ambition. I never played Red Dead Redemption 2 online. Just one. I was really into the Red Dead Redemption 1, the world, you know, the whole thing, you know, customizing your player and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. You're more high tech than I am. I don't even play online games.
Really? You haven't played Red Dead Redemption or anything?
I have. I mean, I played the story and, you know, and done like partner shoot-offs or something like that, you know, but I've never done the online stuff. It just didn't really draw me, you know?
It's a tough environment. You know, you're playing against a bunch of kids that are really good. They've been raised on video games, and they love to gang up on you or work you over again and again and mocking you. You have microphones. You're mocking each other in the microphones. You know what else they did? I forgot all about this. I got to tell you. Sure. When I really got into it, and I'm playing the TUCOtheratt name, my daughter went into the Good, Bad, and the Ugly movie. Have you ever watched that?
Yes.
Okay. And she recorded about 10 different things that Tuco said, funny things that he said, or when he laughs. He has this mocking laugh that he does. And she put that in a file on my computer. And what I could do is, like when I killed somebody, I could, within like half a second, I could click something that he said from the movie. And it would mock them in the Tuco voice, you know, or laugh or something. And it really pissed them off, you know. It was fun. I should have recorded some of that because it was fun. It was like I really brought the character into the game that way, with his voice.
That's hilarious. I'm sure you got a kick out of harassing some kids there.
Yeah, I did. I got one video on my channel where I play it just a little bit for a few minutes. I mean, this is after the game was already destroyed by the hackers, and just to put it on there. It's on there. There's one little video.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, speaking of that, have you played Red Dead Redemption 2? And tell me about your.
Just in the single player, I played the single player, but I never got into the online, competition online with it like before. I just got the story. I didn't actually even finish the story. I'd been played by half the story and got busy with other things.
Got to go back and play it.
Yeah,
you should.
You play that a lot, Red Dead Redemption 2?
I replay the story every now and then. I mean, like we were talking earlier, I got a pretty busy life, so I mean, I don't really get to do it often. It's kind of like I have a choice to sit here and play video games, or I can do YouTube videos, and I'd rather do YouTube videos. So, I guess, but I mean, there's other things. I don't play video games as much as I used to anymore. But yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2 is my favorite video game, I would say.
You know what kind of killed it for me? I was like halfway through the story when the game first came out, and I heard online he gets sick and he dies at the end. I thought, I don't want to play that, so I kept avoiding advancing the story because I didn't want him to get sick, And so I kind of did everything, and then and that kind of what stalled it for me. I know a lot of people said you should finish it. It's a great game. I never have finished the story for that reason.
No, it's just good character development, and it does really stink that the main protagonist, I would say, there's two, but the first protagonist does die, and it's unfortunate, but he's a really good character,
Yeah.
So that's I think you should get back to playing it, but that's awesome that you were into Red Dead, the original. I played that too. Not online, but anyway. So with that being said, why did you go to YouTube as kind of like an influencing space for you, and what was your goal with that? I mean,
the first so my daughter, actually it was me. I wanted to make little Western movies, and my daughter was kind of interested in it. I kind of pulled her into it, and we dressed up like a cowboy and a cowgirl. And we did some stupid little things, and I just actually we used to just burn them to a CD, even before YouTube was that big of a thing, And we just had our little movies that we made at home, And then and somewhere around 2015, I started getting real serious about it. I really dressed up, and I did like a 4-minute movie that I actually spent about 3 weeks filming and editing it. And I used a little building, and I scaled it up with a green screen to make it look like I walked. Actually, I made it look like I kicked in the front door and had a gunfight and all this stuff. And the editing was really complex, and I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I worked way too hard on it, really. I worked about 3 weeks on shooting and editing and everything. And when I had that done, I didn't just want to burn it on a CD, so I put it on YouTube. That was the first video I ever did. And it just kind of sat there, nothing happened. And then I didn't have a real focus on the channel then. I would just put this and that on there. Someone just shooting a semi-automatic, whatever, It was associated with guns, but it wasn't, I wasn't focused in a direction back then. And then gradually I just made more short little movies, and then never really actually see my channel just took off in January. And before then I had a vision. That's the last couple of years I had a vision of where I wanted it to go, But in the early days I was just screwing around on it, really.
Okay. So how long have you been on YouTube?
7 years.
Okay.
And only the last 4 months that I have more than 1,000 subscribers.
Okay. Yeah. So my story is as far as growth is concerned, really, we kind of stagnant for a while. I mean, like I was maybe getting 1 subscriber a day for the
When did you start? When did you start your channel?
Started back in 2018.
Okay.
So I've been around since then, and you know, I was making videos pretty much nonstop every week for about 2 years, and then I eventually life just got crazy and I had to quit. So I stopped for 2 years.
Huh.
And then I just got back into it last year around springtime. And that's kind of when shorts was starting to be a big thing. And so I was experimenting with that and then still doing long form content. And eventually in December, I got the great idea to do a couple videos and they just took off. And I eventually
the shotgun one, the one where you can dump all those shells. That was a 10 million views or something.
Oh, it went well beyond that, but yeah, I mean, it was insane. Like I never thought that it would be that big, but I mean, that's essentially what kind of got me out there. But even before that, I mean, I had been on a couple episodes with some other YouTubers. Santee from Arizona Ghost Riders was helping me out. I did collaborate with him. So, you know, we collaborated, I think, twice before things really took off. But, I mean, he and I had a good relationship, and he kind of mentored me and helped me with this process. And that's why I am here and as big as I am, I guess. But, I mean, you said you've been growing since January, and here you are at, 170,000 subscribers. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was the triple shot that got me off the bottom, I started doing shorts. I did a few shorts before that, and had to shorts are kind of cool because you can get 5,000 views or 10,000 views, and the one triple shot I have now is the worst one I ever did. I put on there in October, and it sat there with like 180 views for like 3 months, and now it's got 40 million or something. Wow. And that video really didn't launch my channel. It was another triple shot I did, and YouTube's the algorithm is retarded. I mean, it ignores you until it finally sees you, and then it thinks everything you do is great, And so, I mean, the shorts are really the only thing that got my channel going.
Have you noticed a slowdown in your subscriptions and all that?
I did in the last month, and I noticed. I thought I was looking at the other cowboy channels, and all of them seemed to kind of slow down.
Yeah,
the growth.
I was getting almost 1,000 subscribers a day for 2 months straight.
Yeah,
and then.
So to me, it slowed down in, I would say, the latter half of March, like the last week of March, up until about a week ago. And now mine's picked up again the last week. But for a whole month there, it just got worse and worse and worse and worse, And I was watching the subscriptions on everybody else's channel, and they jumped up with me, and now they weren't growing as fast either.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder what's going on with that. I mean, I can see people losing interest in one channel, but why all the different cowboy channels,
I think it has everything to do with just that YouTube decided to monetize shorts, and I think
I don't see that as a bad thing. Do you think that's a bad thing, or?
Oh, I don't think it's a bad thing. But I think that had so they started monetizing shorts back in February, and that's right when everything started slowing down for me. I did nothing different, and then all of a sudden it just slashed.
Mine kind of gradually dwindled off, and then it was kind of on the bottom there for about 3 weeks, and actually it's picked up 25% in the last week. It's kind of come up a little bit.
Well, you also, let's be honest. I mean, you do create content quite often. Yeah. I mean, how often are you uploading?
It varies a lot, but I try to upload at least twice a week, 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah, so I was doing every day for about 2 months, So
Yeah.
once again, that might have helped. But then all of a sudden I just was like, everything got busy. I could only do one time a month. And now I'm doing live streams, which isn't a bad thing. But, it kind of cuts into that routine. So
Yeah.
I'm back down to one video a week, if that.
Yeah. What's funny, when my channel blew up in January, I'd been just kind of playing around with it. When I saw it do that, I was like, okay, I need to jump on this. And I started putting out a lot of videos for a couple of weeks. I mean, like a couple a day, and I basically went down, I did all the shooting tricks I could think of, and just kind of threw everything on there. And for like 2 weeks, it grew and grew and grew. And then one day I got a comment, and the guy said, "Hey, dude, you're putting out too much." And I noticed that it started to drop about that week. So I thought, he's probably telling me the truth. So I backed off, tried to cut down to like 2 or 3 a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then the channel kind of lulled out there, and then it took off again. It went even bigger on the second wave. And since then, I never put out like 5 or 6 videos a week. 3 a week would be a lot for me. I think you can oversaturate your audience too with the same thing,
Yeah, I think I was going with the premise of my videos were taken off, and I didn't, I wanted to ride the wave, so I just kept making content, But like I said, that kind of slowed down. My channel varies with content wise. I focus a lot on the Western niche. I focus a lot on Western shooting sports, but I mean, I cover humor, disassembly of things, and obviously interviews. So I mean, it runs the gamut. Not necessarily what I had intended when I originally started, but it's grown into that.
Yeah, I think your interviews have been particularly interesting. When I really thought I'd never want to watch a live stream. I never have, actually, until I watched one of yours.
Really?
I was surprised that conversation was interesting, and then I think I've watched all of them since like January.
Great.
All the interviews that you did.
No, that's great. I think, I think most live streams usually get boring, and I'll be honest, I don't really watch live streams anyway, unless it's someone I know.
Yeah.
So it kind of helps. So a lot of the gun channels that I follow, I'll usually drop in for a live stream if they have one, and I'll tune in for a couple minutes. If the conversation kind of dies down, I'll tune out. And a lot of it, I would say, has to do with just timing. Like right now, we're doing it at 8:00 at night, my time. Most people that are our audience, I would say, don't have children. They're a little older.
Yeah.
And they're kind of winding down, getting ready for bed. So this is around the time that they would have time to watch something like this.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's kind of the way it is. We have a question here from Deja Vu. It says, I know that most SASS shooters recommend Rugers, but what is your opinions of Uberti? Do they do well if they are slicked up by a gunsmith? Tuco, you want to take that away?
My opinion of Uberti, I think Ruger Vaquero is superior to Uberti for sure. I think Pieta is superior to Uberti. Pieta is a true single action army, which I just particularly like, and I like building them into race guns. So to me, Pieta is way better than Uberti. But as far as cowboy action, I think the Ruger Vaquero is probably the easiest, most reliable gun to just get into the sport and not have to change it that much to shoot decently.
Yeah, I would say that I've seen more Ubertis and Pietas break down than a Ruger.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they run the guns as fast as they do, and varying types of ammunition. But I would say I shoot Rugers, but I'm not your typical SASS shooter that is going for speed, and I'm more the guy that likes to try everything out. So I would shoot all of them And to be honest with you, I mean, I personally like Rugers better for certain reasons, but I do love Ubertis. I have enough of them, and I have Colts too, and I use those. So, that's my opinion on that. But,
Hey, let me ask you a question, Slick.
sure.
Are any of your single actions or your rifles have the short stroke kit on them?
So I have 2 rifles that have the short stroke kit, and I did install it myself. I had enough competence and courage to do that. Sorry, but I mean, on a 6-gun, to be honest with you, I'm not confident enough to. I can pretty much lighten things up. I can do that, but I mean, as far as kind of what you do, I mean, that stuff kind of scares me. So
it's pretty in depth. Yeah. See,
that?
I don't. None of my guns are short stroke.
Okay.
My race guns, they have a full stroke on them. I've handled a short stroke gun once just to experience it, but I've never really shot one or owned one. That conversion is fairly complex. I mean, I'm sure I could get through it, but you're moving where the hand attaches and the length of the hand. I mean, I'm sure once you do it once, you can do it, but it's not a simple thing.
Yeah, I mean, most of the short strokes I've seen, especially when it comes to Rugers, usually put the thing at a half have a half cock modification, and I'm just not a fan of doing that. But I mean, on rifles, I'll do the short stroke kits all day.
You kind of have to be competitive. You need the short stroke kit, I think, don't you? I mean, you're never gonna.
Well,
all the top guys in your club are going to have a short stroke kit on their guns.
Yeah, I mean, see, the thing is it really depends on who you shoot with. That's why, and I'm sure you can attest to this. Is you shot down in Florida, right, for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty big names down there. I was talking to Midwest Hale on one of these interviews, and she shoots with some of the people that have been around since the early 2000s. And they're really fast people. The club where I'm at, we have 1 or 2 people that are really fast and competitive and probably well known, but the rest of them, they're kind of like me.
Yeah, just there to have fun and not take it too serious.
Yeah, for the most part, I would say so. You do get the occasional person that can be coming off as a bit of a jerk, but for the most part, and that's why I like this community, is they're all relatively nice people,
Mm-hmm.
and competition usually is second. So
yeah,
but
in cowboy action, I think leans that way. A greater percentage of the crowd is just there to have fun. Because I've shot USPSA and action pistol, and it just there's a greater percentage of people in there that are really serious, really competitive, and that's fine. I mean, I was too. That's what you're there to do, But in cowboy action, it's a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more just fun. The dress up is a big part of it, and just having fun with it. Yeah,
no, that's definitely one of those things that kind of plays into it. Is you're wearing different clothes, and I think I was watching a YouTube video a while ago that said the women joined SASS for the guns and the men joined SASS for the clothes. I don't know if that's really true, but it was just kind of an interesting little highlight. So we'll talk a little bit more about SASS and all that here in a second. But before we do that, why are you interested in the period of the Old West, and what got you into it? I mean, obviously you talked about movies and such, but I mean, want to explain why you like it?
Oh, the Old West thing. Well, as a kid growing up watching TV, the Western movies and stuff, even though you find out later most of that isn't true to history, but that got me into it as a kid. So it's always been something I thought was cool. And then as I got older, I read a lot of the true Western history. I really got into that a lot too. And I think it's interesting where the Western history crosses paths with the movies, which it does here and there, And so just the whole thing, the whole period, 1865 to 1895, 1900. It's hard to define it, but you could never get to the end of learning about that time period. It's all very, very interesting. The Indian Wars, the gunfighters, the whole thing. It's just every time I dive into it, there's stuff I learn that I've never heard of before. It's just a very fascinating time period in history, and the guns were. I mean, the guns became really cool at 1873. You got your 73 single action Colt. You got your Sharps 1874. Winchester 73. I mean, right in 1873 is when, to me, that's the between 1873 and 85 was probably the golden age or whatever in Old West history. Most of the famous gunfights happened right in there, and I mean, the whole thing is just something it's more interesting than any other period in history to me.
Yeah. I mean, as far as my interest is, it just kind of came about just because of, well, one, I used to live in Arizona. So, I mean, you got a lot of Western influence there. But it also came about just because I kind of like the no quit attitude that came with it. And it was just a different time that, people, needless to say, as much as it was probably a lot more perilous to live then, people had a lot more freedom, and I think that's kind of appealing.
Yeah, totally. I get what you're saying about that. That's another thing that was fascinating to me. We live our current lives under heavy government intervention in our lives. And when you think about, I'll tell you an interesting story.
Sure.
My great-grandfather on my mom's side, one of my great-grandfathers was born in 1883. He ran away from home when he was 16 in 1899, 1900. Hitched a ride on a train, became a cowboy for like 10 years and homesteaded in Colorado. And I met him before he died.
Really?
And when I think about the changes that he experienced in his life, he was born into the age of steam engines and wagons and horses. He was a cowboy. He was a homesteader. And before he died, he watched men walk on the moon. When he didn't get income tax until he was 30 some years old. There was no income tax.
Right.
I mean, you watch, when you think about the world he was born into, it was really free compared to what we have. I mean, we are so hemmed in, it's unbelievable. And that Old West time period, it was a period of freedom. It was not a period of justice. When you read the true history, there was lynchings, and there were, just like today, people got away with murder, and they got lynched or sent to prison for things they didn't do. I mean, I don't think it was any more just, but it was a lot more free than what we experience now.
So, with that being said, did he pass on any words of wisdom of what he?
I was 8 years old when he died, and I met him. I remember, just a foggy memory. He lived on his own until he was like 91 or 92. And I remember going to his apartment. He gave me a cigar box, and he never really told me those stories. I heard those stories from my uncles. The story about him being a cowboy and all that stuff, But I just remember meeting him, really. So I heard about him from the other family members, but I was pretty young when he died. But I do remember meeting him.
Okay. And what was your impression when you met him? You're like, oh my gosh, like I can't.
Well, I didn't appreciate any of that as a little tiny kid. I was like 8 years old when he died. So by the time I was 10 or 11, I was like, man, my great grandpa lived in the Old West. he was a cowboy. He was the real thing. I'm watching these. That's when I put it together after he was gone. I put it together that he was one of the people that lived back then, you know. And so, yeah, at the time I didn't appreciate it. It was something I appreciated later.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a cool story, though. I mean, I be honest with you, I didn't have any grandfathers. All my grandfathers were dead by the time I was born. So, you know, but I mean, I do have stories from my father, tells me about them and stuff like that. You know, my grandfather died of TB when he was in his 40s.
Well,
so, you know, and he had been in World War II and was one of the first. When aviation was starting to be a big thing, he was actually one of the barnstormers.
Oh, really? In the 30s?
Say again?
That was in the 1930s, 20s, and 30s, the barnstorming?
Yeah, barnstorming, back when they really didn't have airfields, so they would find a alfalfa field or something like that that'd just been harvested, and they'd land in it, and some random farmer, and it's like, hey, let's go up for a ride or something like that, you know.
Well,
but yeah, he also made a living doing that.
Before the war.
Say again?
Before the Second World War, he was a barnstormer?
Yes.
Well, what did he do in World War II?
He was a naval aviator, and he also taught. He did not go to Japan or Europe, Pacific or the European theater, but he taught people how to fly because he was technically too old. I guess.
That's what it sounds like. If he was a barnstormer, he would have been an older guy by World War II.
Yeah, I mean, he died in 19. I want to say he died in 1950.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, he was born in, I think, 1911.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, he was really young
for
that time. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, that's, you know, but we don't really have. I'm sure we do have a connection to the Old West in some way, shape, or form, but nothing my family's really talked about. We pretty much just go back to 1900, and that's kind of when everything really is talked about, I guess. So
yeah,
just kind of interesting there.
Huh. I got to tell you a brief story then, if you're kind of interested in family history. On my mom's side, on her dad, see, that was on my mom's mother's side. On my mom's father's side, I did the family tree a few years ago, and I went back to the first immigrant from England, which was in the 1760s, to North Carolina, and that, I don't know how many far back grandpas that is, but that guy fought in the Revolutionary War and was a slave owner, and his son and grandsons were slave owners in North Carolina.
Okay.
And his, getting a little vaguer, the great grandson of the guy that came over from England, he didn't fight in the Civil War because he was a little old by the time it started, but all of his brothers did. And I went into the family tree, and I got photographs of all these guys from like 1860 onward. And it was really interesting because the whole family fought for the South, and the direct descendant. Well, here's what's interesting: my dad, my grandpa on my mom's side, whom I knew quite well, and he lived until I was about 18. His dad was born in 1860 in North Carolina, right at the start of the war, and his father, which would be my grandpa's grandpa, was murdered in 1869. And it's a story that I got in touch with a relative I don't even know, and he gave me the newspaper clipping. And what happened was if you're familiar with the Civil War history, after the war, the South was in chaos. It was full of crime, and it was completely destroyed by the war, and there was a tremendous amount of violence and stuff. And my grandpa, whom I met, his grandpa He went to town to pay taxes on their land and didn't come back. And the newspaper article told about this. They found his body on the railroad tracks. Somebody had beat him to death and left him on the train tracks to get run over. All the money was gone. The family lost the land because of that. And his son, who's my grandpa's father, migrated from North Carolina to Colorado in 1900 when he was about 40.
Uh-huh.
And then my grandpa was born after that, So, I mean, the whole thing is just, it's right in the Civil War and everything. It's pretty interesting. And I got photographed going back to my dad's grandpa for 1860 era photographs on my ancestry page.
Nice.
So that's kind of a fun project.
Mm. That'd be something that you probably, even though I know you're more of a gun guy, it's probably something you should show on your YouTube channel. Some people might be interested in that.
Yeah, or they blame me for black oppression or whatever. I owe some, what do they call it, reparations.
Oh, I don't think they would go that far, and if they do, oh well. You know how it is. You get haters.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, no, that's neat. So that's cool that you know that history. So I think you should be proud of that. For one, and two, I mean, share that. That's cool.
Yeah.
You got a lot of other YouTube channels that are big on Western history, and you can be like, hey, this is what my family did during Western migration. And all that.
Yeah.
With that being said, do you have any other periods in history that you're interested in?
I'd say a little bit of World War I aviation, the aerial combat in World War I I'm interested in, and the rest would be World War II.
Uh-huh.
In general. World War II was super interesting, beginning to end. Almost everything. It's another subject you can dive into and never get to the bottom of it. It's so interesting.
Yeah, funny little. Well, it's not funny, but just a little story about me. I actually interviewed a World War II veteran back in high school. He's probably dead now, but sadly, I did not keep in touch with him because, as you're younger, you don't appreciate those things. But as that generation passes, and it's like, wow, you actually talked to that person, got their experience. The fact is I interviewed him and talked to him about his story, and got it on record and sent it to the Smithsonian.
Oh, really?
So his story is forever recorded, at least as long as the Smithsonian is still around.
That's pretty cool.
So that's just something that, and what was kind of interesting about that, I don't mean to detract too much from Western stuff, but what was really interesting about that was I was actually at the World War II memorial dedication. That was part of the project, is that you would interview these people, you would give their stories to Smithsonian, and you would also be there as a guest for the dedication of the World War II memorial. And, so I was there on opening day.
Where was that at?
Was that?
Where was that at, the World War II dedication thing?
It was in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So, and you also got to meet, they had a lot of people that were also book writers and had autobiographies and biographies about them. So I did get to talk to the Band of Brothers.
Oh, really?
Familiar with them.
Yeah. That's
Say again?
That's pretty cool. You met those guys, the survivors?
I did. I actually took my book of Band of Brothers and got it signed by every member that I met.
Wow, that's cool.
So that was kind of cool. Sad to say the main character of the whole Band of Brothers stuff, Major Winters wasn't there because he was sick, I guess. But yeah, unfortunately, he died in 2011. But yeah, I mean, I talked to those guys, and just lots of living history that all in 1 week. So that was just really cool.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool.
But yeah, no, but yeah, World War II is kind of something that I was into for a while. I kind of fell out of that, but I mean, it's still something that I read about every time, every now and then. Awesome.
Yeah.
Why aviation? Let me ask you that. What's so? Do you own a plane or do you
No,
fly?
not at all. Not at all. I was kind of just fascinated with aerial combat, and in the last 10 years, I've got into some of the online aerial combat games too. IL-2 is a aerial combat game. You fly World War I and World War II airplanes, and you can dogfight online. And I got into that for a while, and in learning about the planes and the way they performed, and the way that during the war it was a technology race. The difference in World War II, the beginning of the war to the end of the war, and what those planes could do was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They came in with they were underpowered, and their guns were too small, and by the end of the war they were really good at shooting down other planes, and so the game taught me some of the history, to understand the progression of the technology. So I guess it's from an online gaming standpoint. I mean, I was familiar with it, but when I played the games, I really learned more history than when I read the books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually did. Small side note: I actually did do a little flying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to go for my private pilot's license, but then that got too expensive. So found other things that are just as equally as expensive, if not more so.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
Do you do cowboy action at your local club there? Do you get to shoot at more than one club, or just the one club that's nearby?
So there's 4 clubs that are kind of in the vicinity. The one that's really close is the one that I go to. I mean, it's probably about 20 miles away, but the others are a couple hours away. I have shot at most of them, at least in the central area of Texas. You're talking Green Mountain Regulators out in Marble Falls area, the Plum Creek Shooting Society, which is down in Lockhart, and the I'm blanking on their names now. The Tejas Caballeros is out in Blanco County. That's a good club to go to. And then there's Fredericksburg. There's a shoot out in Fredericksburg. So I've been to all those, but I do go to the one that's closest more often.
About 5 or 6 clubs, 4 or 5 clubs, something like that.
Yeah.
Total. Yeah. Have you ever shot semi-automatic action pistols? USPSA or anything?
You're talking about doing USPSA?
Yeah.
I have not. No.
What's interesting, see, I've only done about 5 or 6 cowboy action matches, but I've done about over 100 USPSA or action pistol semi-automatic matches. And I love the guns of cowboy action in the dress up, but I love the stages you shoot in the semi-automatic USPSA, because in cowboy action, for the most part, you're picking up, you're drawing your gun, you're shooting targets right in front of you, and you're moving left or right on tables. It's kind of the same thing over and over again. In USPSA, you actually move through the stage. You progress forward 15, 20 yards or backwards or laterally, you shoot around corners. It's just a lot more like a gunfight, And I wish that cowboy action, I wish you could shoot cowboy actions. I wish you could shoot USPSA stages with cowboy action guns, because that would be really, really fun.
Yeah.
Because of the variety, And the other thing in USPSA, it's kind of cool, is that they give you a stage, they give you a bunch of targets, and you decide how you're going to shoot it. So you can start over here, over there, forward, back, whatever. And so what you see is different shooters shooting it in different ways. They're given the shooting challenge, and everybody gets to go about it their own way. And a lot of times when the match starts, nobody knows the best way to shoot it. And you watch shooters shoot it starting from the left, starting from the right, starting downrange, uprange. And so the discovery of the best way to shoot the stage is half the fun, you know. In cowboy action, you're given a script. You know, the other thing cowboy action is that if there's no makeup shots except for the shotguns, right? Like if you miss a pistol or rifle, it's a miss. You can't make it up. In USPSA, you have to put 2 shots on all the cardboard and 1 on the steel. And if you miss, you just shoot again. And I understand the reason why they do that. It has to do with the tediousness of unloading single action revolvers. It's slow to load them and unload them. And at the end of the stage, in USPSA, at the end of the stage, you have bullets in your gun. So drop your magazine, rack your slide, you're clear. 1, 2, 3, you're done. Cowboy action takes a lot more time. So I understand why they don't do it. But if you get a chance to shoot semi-automatic in USPSA or IDPA, you got to try it because the stages are really, really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I thought about it for a while. Just that, you know, I think it was the fact that I kind of was on a collection spree of specific types of guns, and I'm like, when can I use these? Where can I use these? I can't use it in USPSA, so I'll use them in cowboy action. So, you know, but no, I think that would be awesome to do because, I mean, certainly the dynamics of it would be a little bit more engaging, I guess. You know, cowboy action, you do it because you shoot steel, and you know that's kind of, you get the automatic satisfaction of hitting steel. And I know you said you have steel targets and you have cardboard targets in USPSA, but I think the steel is part of the big appeal there. Not to say you couldn't do that though, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's awesome. What's your I mean, because our next question is getting into, you know, do you do any competitive shooting? Currently, do you do any other than your own fast draw?
You know, I my first competitive match was in 2009, and I shot for a little over 10 years in 4 states. I shot a total of over 100 matches. In USPSA, I did level 1, 2, and 3 matches. They're the bigger, like a level 3 match is like 500 shooters, and it takes like a week for the whole match to happen. You shoot over 2 days, and so I've been all in that world of USPSA. And in 2019 and 2020, I would practice for an hour a day, 5 days a week. I'd go to 3 matches a month. And I would drive to where I live. I got to drive a long ways to my matches. So I would drive 185 miles one way. So that's 360, 50, 60 miles. Those are long days. And to me, I got to the point I was just all in. And I enjoyed it. I'm glad I did it. I think everybody should try competitive shooting that's into guns, you know, but after 10 years, you know, I've been there, I've done that. 2020 was the last year I shot full time, and I shot 15 matches. I was first, second, or third in 8 of the 15, and I was first place in my division in 5 of the 15 matches. And I was 52 years old. And at that point, I was like, you know, I've been there, I've done that, I've had fun, but it's getting to be like a rerun for me because I've done it enough that I want to move on to something else. And the YouTube thing is my new thing, and I'm having a ball doing the YouTube thing, really. So, I mean, I'll probably try competitive shooting. I'll dabble in it now and then, but unless you get to a point in it where the way I got to was like, if I didn't win the match or at least beat people I've never beat before, I didn't have fun. And when you get to that point, it's like, how many times do you want to do that? So I kind of been there, done that when it comes to competing. I'll probably dabble in it a little bit, but if you're not all in, you're not competitive. If you're not training hard, you're not going to be making improvement. And I guess I'm getting lazy in my old age.
Well, before I get into my question on that, this is going back to SASS. Deja Vu is saying, didn't SASS in the really old days look like a 3-gun competition? My answer to that is I joined in 2016, and really things haven't changed since then. So I honestly can't answer that question honestly. So what would you say, Tuco? Because I know you shot back in the...
Actually, the first SASS match I shot was in 2009, and it was just like it is today. I believe it was, shoot steel and move left or right. You didn't move forward in the stage. I don't know if they ever did that. But yeah, I think it was the same as it is now, and it's fun. I'm not saying it's not fun. The problem with cowboy action too is you're packing around 3 guns all day long in a cart. In USPSA, you just got 1 gun, so it's just simpler. It's just an easier day. You drive all this way; it's just an easier day. Cowboy action it's an equipment heavy sport, and that's just the way it is. And I don't think it's any different from when I started until now, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I think to answer that question more accurately, it varies on the club. Let's just be honest, the people who started SASS are older than they were, so they don't want to have to move as much. On top of that, the clubs have a huge say on how stages are run. I mean, there's a couple where they'll make you sit on a fake horse or ride a mine cart or something like that. I've been to a few of those.
Riding a mine cart would be fun.
Yeah, the mine cart was it was hilarious because, I mean, you can't draw from your holsters. You actually have to draw from the cart. And what they did was they took leather holsters and glued them on the cart, and so you pull them from the holsters there.
Wow.
So
that sounds cool.
Yeah, but I think I do on my channel. I think I do have a stage where I do have a video where I shot a stage with a mine cart. But I wanted to ask you, since you were talking about USPSA, what's your go-to pistol? What do you use?
You asking me?
Yeah.
SIG 320 is my favorite semi-auto. The SIG 320 and the Legion grip, which is a heavy grip. It makes the gun heavier. The recoil is easier to manage.
So with
the carry optic, the red dot optic. The carry optic was I did the production class too, but the carry optics is when I really got into it because my eyes were failing. I can't really focus on the sights at the end of the barrel. I need that red dot to see.
So I'm gonna throw a little wrench in there. The 320, didn't that have some type of defect a long time ago?
Yeah, it did, and it's funny. It didn't come to light until Glock lost the military contract. All of a sudden, all these videos were showing up that you could make the SIG 320 go off if it was dropped or something. I totally think Glock is behind all that. Okay. I totally trust that thing. I do fast draws on that thing. Never had an accident. I'm totally confident. I mean, to get that gun to misfire, to fire without pulling the trigger, they were dropping it like much higher than you have to throw it up in the air and get it to come down at the right angle. I don't buy any of that crap. And I'll tell you something else. There's been a bunch of accidents with police officers claiming that that gun went off in their holster. And all that's a bunch of BS. Those guys, they either had clothing snagged in the trigger guard, they were improperly carrying the gun, or they had their finger on the trigger, and they blame it on the SIG 320 to get out of taking responsibility for the fact that they let one off. That's my opinion. I mean, I'm totally not the least. That's my carry gun too, the SIG 320.
Yeah. No, I know that some people believe that, but I just thought I'd bring it up because, with that stuff, because it is something that people do talk about. I just was wondering if, if you knew of that or
I know.
what you
I
knew.
don't think there's anything to that at all. I don't. I mean, the mechanism in the Glock is more complex. The SIG mechanism was simpler, but the net result is I don't think the SIG 320 is dangerous. Even I have one with the original trigger on, doesn't have the upgrade, and I carry it. I have no problem carrying that thing.
Okay. So why SIG then? Why'd you choose that?
Well, see, I've shot 1911s. I love 1911s, but they're not the easiest gun to shoot. Shot Glocks. The SIG 320 was just the easiest, most forgiving gun to shoot if you weren't gripping it just right or whatever. The SIG 320, to me, it's the easiest gun to shoot in the world.
Okay. I've never shot one, to be honest with you.
It's just a very naturally feeling gun. The Glocks have an oddball grip angle on them. The 1911 is a great gun, but you got to fiddle with the thumb safety, And the SIG 320 is just simple, easy, just easy. It's the easiest gun to shoot.
Yeah, I own a couple semi-autos. I don't own any modern, real, like polymer. That doesn't mean that I haven't shot them. But I have two semi-autos currently. I have a 1911 and then I have a Colt 1903.
Okay. Pocket pistol.
And have you shot those old pocket pistols and stuff like that, or?
I haven't shot a 1903, no.
Okay.
No. I've shot the 1911, and it's a beautiful gun. It's not the easiest thing to shoot. It just isn't. There's more to it. More steps. Drop that thumb safety, and there's more to do.
Yeah, it's also it also. I mean, it is heavy.
Yeah,
it's a heavy gun.
Heavy to pack. It's heavy to carry it all day. I used to carry one, and they're heavy.
Yeah. No, it's. I noticed that when I went into a gun store, and I do, surprise, everyday carry. I do have concealed carry.
What do you carry?
1911.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But then again, like I said, I'm also rethinking that because I went into a gun store and said, I want to see if there's something I could try, because you know how it is. You can't just not collect these eventually, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to get my hand on a specific type of modern semi-auto, and I went with Glock, regardless of what you think about it. That's what I tried.
Yeah. I think the Glock 19 is particularly comfortable to carry.
And it's this was a 19X, and I liked it because I really liked the capacity of the 19X. But then when I put it in my holster, I felt like I wasn't wearing anything after wearing that 1911 all day.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool to me.
How were you concealing the 1911 in the summer?
I wear a very oversized shirt.
Yeah.
I do. I actually, my holster is actually a belly band. So I don't do waistband carry at all with it. I carry it usually higher than normal, more at the shoulder height, like a shoulder holster.
Under the armpit?
Yeah, kind of under the armpit, and that's really the best way for me. I can wear that thing all day if I carry it in a shoulder holster area.
Yeah.
But I did carry the 1903 for a while.
Is that in a 45 or what's the caliber on that?
32.
Okay.
And
which is smaller than, probably smaller than a 9mm, isn't it?
Yes, it is. 9mm, you're looking at the 380 size. So it's slightly smaller. It's semi-rimmed as opposed to rimless. It's not a bad cartridge to me. I think it's great shooting it. There's almost no recoil. But the problem I had with it, because as old as it is, not that things aren't designed well. I think it is designed well for exactly what it was meant to be, because it's got a grip safety. It's got a thumb safety on it too, just like the 1911. But what I don't like about it is I had a hard time carrying around in the chamber.
Without worrying about shooting yourself, I mean? Or?
Yeah, I mean, you can carry a 1911 cocked and locked all day. You're not going to have issues.
Yeah.
But with a 1903, yes, you could carry it cocked and locked, but I didn't trust the thumb safety, because the thumb safety is literally, it doesn't have a detent to keep it in place. And so my fear was that throughout the day, as it was rubbing, it would eventually rub it off.
It could.
And it did have a grip safety, so that was a secondary, but I still didn't trust it. And people can hate on me all they want about that, but I mean, if I'm going to carry one in the chamber, I'm going to make sure that it has all the safeties that I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, I think that's a good reason to go with a Glock or a SIG 320, because you don't have to fiddle with the safety in an emergency. I mean, unless you're really going to train. An emergency, you're going to pull that thing out, pull a trigger. It's easy to forget to drop that thumb safety if you've got a thumb safety to mess with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sadly, I have not had a striker fired gun. So carrying that would be a change for me, because not to say that in a stressful situation I wouldn't drop the thumb safety or forget, but it's just something that I am more mindful of since I do carry it. But I haven't had to draw it in anger, so I mean, or should I say self-defense? Not really anger. Can't do that.
I got to tell you a story. True
Sure.
self-defense story. We lived down in Florida. Went for a walk with my family in the evening, and I had just started carrying a gun with a concealed carry permit for the first time. It was a 1911. It was tucked in my waistband. It wasn't a very good way to carry it, but we're out for a walk in a residential area where we lived. Some guy came down the street in a car, driving way too fast, and he just about ran over us. And we literally had to jump out of the way for this guy not to hit us. He ran all the way up the street, way up around the curve, and then he came back. We were walking our dog too, and he came back really fast, and he was about to run over us again. And we jumped off the road, and I took the dog chain and I whipped the front of his car. I cracked that chain over the front of his car, so he slammed on the brakes, and I wasn't mentally in the right frame of mind. I was falling back to junior high school, go kick somebody's ass, and I was thinking, as soon as he slammed on the brakes, I was thinking, okay, this is going to be a fist fight. This isn't a self-defense thing. I need to go up there and kick his ass, So I walked up there, and he jumped out of the car. And at the minute I seen him, his eyes were just full of fear. I mean, he was just crazy, fright, in fear, And I can't remember. We had this exchange of words, and it ended with, "Let's call the police and let them sort it out." And then my wife says, "You got a knife?" And he jumped in the car and took off. And he had a knife in his hand. He had it hidden down by his leg.
Oh.
And so the whole time I'm up in his face arguing with him, already assumed in my mind, this isn't going to be a life or death confrontation. I got to fight this guy. He's got a knife in my hand, and I'm not noticing it. And so when that ended, I realized, you know what? I went about that totally wrong. I should have kept the distance. I shouldn't have challenged him. I mean, he could have stabbed me easily.
Yeah.
He just didn't do it. And so I kind of learned my lesson about concealed carry isn't about chest thumping junior high school crap. It's about avoiding confrontations till the very last moment when you can't avoid it, and keeping distance and walk away and all that,
Yeah. No, how close were you to the guy?
Oh, I was just chest to chest. I was junior high school. Come on, man, this kind of stupid crap, right?
Oh.
It was stupid.
Yeah.
I did everything wrong, I threw all my training out the window and just defaulted.
We got a question from St. Andrew TV here. He says, a question for both parties. What are your thoughts on the cavalry draw? Do you dislike it? Your pros and cons?
I think it's great if you're riding a horse. It's probably the best carry if you're riding a horse with a big single action revolver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I don't use it, so I can't really say that I like it or dislike it. Obviously, in competition, that would be something that's more of a safety concern. And if done right, you really don't break the 170 rule in SASS. But I could see that under timing and pressure, you could accidentally sweep somebody, which is one of the reasons why people just don't.
Well, it'd be slow in competition too, I think.
Yeah, that too.
The cowboy action, you're not going to want to breach all the way over.
I think the best thing, the thing that I could say as far as cavalry draw is concerned, I do like cross drawing, so that's as close as I'll get to a cavalry draw. But it's, it's not my favorite. I would say it's not my go-to. I think if you prefer it, go with it, but it's not one of mine. So that's what I would say. Thank you for the question, St. Andrew. Getting into, we talked a little bit about your firearms, but getting back to your single action armies and all that, what is your most prized or favorite firearm that you own?
It's every race gun I just built, and I'm on my fourth one. I built my first one first I bought one not quite 2 years ago. I found one in a gun store, and that was my most prized gun. And then I made my own in December out of it was a Uberti that honestly was the worst single action I had, and I looked at it. It's a good test subject for my race gun attempt, and it's kind of screwed up. But then when I finished that, I was proud of that. And then I've done 3 more, and I just finished the 4th one. And every time I build one, it's better than the last one. So the latest one I built is a Pieta. It's blue. It's got an octagon barrel on it, 4 3/4 barrel, and it's not perfect, but it's getting really close. It's really, really fun.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you actually hold classes on how to do that, right?
Yeah, on Patreon, I showed this 4th gun that I built beginning. I showed taken out of the box, every single thing, lightening the springs, cutting the notches and leads, putting a support block in, adjusting the timing, everything, step by step by step. I got 9 videos on there. And if there's enough, anybody that, I bought that Pieta for $539 and I got $34 into it.
Uh-huh.
And it's a race gun. And it's fannable. You can do the triple shot, everything with it.
Nice. I haven't seen it, but just kind of give estimate of how long it takes to take a stock gun and go to a race gun like that.
That project, I think I got about 5 hours into it.
Uh-huh.
The hardest part is you need to have a milling machine to cut the notches and leads, and that's something most people don't have, but the cutting of the notches and leads took about an hour and a half to set it up, about an hour of actual cutting. Uh-huh. And the rest of it is with hand files and stones, I still get about 5 hours into it. But I mean, I'm learning as I go. I'm getting better.
Uh-huh.
The first one I built, was probably more time. I mean, I never took track of the time, but I mean, it's 5-6 hours, something like that. I mean, I don't do it all at one time because I mean, you just cut the notches and leads, you're stressed out. It's like an hour and a half. You got to stop because you screwed up. You screwed it up, so it's, I did it over several days. We did about 5 or 6 hours total.
Okay. Yeah. So do you just own the pistols? Do you own any rifles?
I've got a U-Birdie 73, a U-Birdie 66. I got a Sharps, a Pedersoli 74 Sharps. So I got most of the cowboy guns. I've got a side-by-side double barrel with the external hammers. I can't remember, some kind of a copy clone. I can't remember what maker it is. I got all the classic cowboy guns.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's I mean your skill with building your own race gun and all that stuff, like what advice could you give to somebody who is interested in doing something like that and getting into, I mean, is it appropriate to call what you do trick shooting?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's exhibition shooting, trick shooting. It's different than a competition in the sense that if I set up and turn my video camera on, screw it up, I just don't show that. I do it until I do it right. And that's exhibition shooting is much easier than competition, where you got to go up against the other guy and you got one chance to do it. That's part of the fun of it to me. The pressure's off. I just have fun now.
Yeah. Awesome. What are some things, and you may have already covered it with our previous conversation, but what are some things that you would like to make an impact on in the Western niche community on YouTube?
I'd like to, and I think I am helping even people that aren't gun people. They make comments on my channel, on my videos all the time. I get comments. I'm not even a gun person, but this looks like fun. It looks cool, and I think, not that I'm trying to win over every leftist on YouTube, but I've had people that say, I'm not into guns at all. I don't really like guns, but I like what you do, and now I'm curious, and so, I mean, just show that it's fun, and I don't know if I'm influencing people to compete, but I'm influencing them that the single action revolvers are fun and they're cool.
Yeah. I'd say just being a bigger YouTuber, that's probably what kind of comes of it. You get people that aren't necessarily into what you're into. They just came across you and said, hey, I'll follow this guy. And you may actually have a huge impact on them. I think that's something that we kind of take for granted.
Yeah.
We don't really think about. Yeah, that's good. The let's talk a little bit more about like where people can find you. If I'm just some random subscriber or viewer, obviously we talked about YouTube, but I mean, is that the only place we can find you, or what are some other places they can find you online?
I'm on Gab, but I really don't go there anymore. Gab is an online platform. It's a free speech platform. And I really like the concept of Gab. It's true free speech. If it's not illegal, it's allowed to be on there. The problem is the Nazis took it over, and it's kind of it's dying. People aren't really on there anymore, and I don't even go on there. So other than Gab, it's YouTube and the Patreon channel. That's it. I'm not anywhere else.
But you're not into like Instagram or Facebook?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So that's good. Kind of a fewer. I'm kind of broad.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit more centralized than I used to be. But I used to be on. I'm on Rumble. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. I used to be on Twitter, and then I got off that.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story.
It all takes time. It's how many things you want to maintain too,
Yeah.
how many different platforms you want to. One thing I do try to do is on my YouTube channel, I try to address almost every comment.
Yeah.
That's a huge burden, and if I had to do it on multiple platforms, I certainly couldn't do it. But I think people appreciate that.
I think it's interesting you bring that up. And I do that. I try to do that too, but it's really, really hard to, just from a creator's perspective, it's really hard to actually, once you respond to somebody,
Yeah.
it's hard for you to respond to them again if they comment.
Well, you just heart them then. Give them a verbal, and then next time just heart them. I mean, you do have to kind of put a period on it, to put a name into it sooner or later, but that's what I do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll engage people, especially if they're asking thought-provoking questions. I'll engage them in multiple comments, but I mean, that's always a way you can kind of gracefully, respectfully put an end to it,
Wow. No, it's just what's hard for me is trying to respond to the comments that I responded to and feeding off of that. And it's hard to keep track. But I do see why it's important to respond to comments. And
what's really hard? I'll tell you what's really hard is I got into the habit of they respond to me in a language other than English. That I'll copy it, paste it into Google Translate, and I'll give them an answer back in their language. And so then when they come back to me with another question, it's really complicated because I can't just, I got to go back and look at it and I don't remember this comment. What did I say? So that, especially then I just heart it, because it can take up a lot of time.
Well, it's really funny that you say that is the way that I respond to those comments is I just say, thank you for your comment in English.
Yeah. But if you think about it, I get really, what's the word? I get really pleasant and kind, very kind comments from people from all over the world. In some cases, it's a paragraph, and they're basically saying, "I really love what you do. It's entertaining. I watch this with my grandpa." It's an important. It's a really heartfelt comment from them, and when they do that, I try to give them something personal back. Say hi to your grandpa for me or whatever, to show them I read their comment. And I think it's helped. I think it's helped my channel. 85% of my audience is outside the United States.
Yeah.
Which is, you wouldn't think it'd be like that. I think it'd be all cowboys and Indians in the United States, but most of it's outside the U.S.
Yeah. No, I think that's kind of more common. I mean, I even have that too. So, but I think I'll take that tip. Definitely try to be a little bit more. Try to be a little bit more personable with foreigners. Not that I dislike foreigners. I don't want to say that. It's just when I get different languages and then I get a lot of comments in English, it's like I'm going to answer all the English comments.
It's easy to pass them up. I get a lot of comments that say something like, "This is the most American thing I've ever seen," and they're from another country and they're cheering America.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, you're kind of like your own ambassador in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. What let's see, how do people get more experience on the Old West, in your opinion?
Oh, Wikipedia gives you an overview. You can. I read a lot of those articles because you can dive in and you can read about the Southwest during the Old West and all these stories and these people that connected to each other. So I think a Wikipedia experience. I hate Wikipedia in general, but you can get a really good overview quickly that way and kind of begin to understand what really happened. Because from the Western movies, of course, you don't get it, but you got to read books to really get into the nuances, of the in-depth Western history. You got to read books, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one. everything else, that's, Hollywood is fabricated. So, you can't necessarily go off that, although that's not saying that documentaries aren't fabricated.
Yeah.
There's some good ones out there that I would recommend. I think Ken Burns does a good one.
Yeah, those are good.
So,
what's your favorite historical Old West book?
I'm actually a fan of, I can't remember the author, but it's about Jesse James.
Mm.
And basically it talks about his last, the last stand at the Northfield Bank.
Yeah.
And, basically his running and hiding from the law, and the Pinkertons chasing after him. And, it's kind of interesting because it goes into what I like about it is it kind of takes away all, I don't want to say glory and his mystique, but it talks a lot about how he's basically running and hiding and murdering and killing people in the process of trying to evade the law. And it's, he just wasn't a good dude, and you just
his
knew.
Robin Hood reputation was wearing thin late in life, I think.
And I mean, at the end of the day, when he got caught, I mean, just, they ended up getting surrounded, and they got shot up pretty good. So I mean, plus
I think
they
it's
lost.
interesting that him and Frank James are the only part of their gang that escaped.
Yeah, and Frank,
they got away.
Yeah, and Frank was the only one, I think, that continued to live after, and Jesse obviously was assassinated.
Yeah.
But I mean, they lost 2 people in the Northfield raid alone.
How long after that did he get murdered? After the Northfield raid?
I honestly don't remember. But it was just it really didn't talk about that. It just talked about his arrest. And
they didn't get Jesse James in. He got escaped, didn't he? They got everybody else but him and Frank.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one. It was a while. It's been a while since I've read the book, but I mean, I do remember that most of the gang got captured. 2 of them got killed. The rest got arrested, and I think Jesse did get away with Frank, and that's kind of where they all disappear.
Yeah.
And do
Did
their
you
own
ever
thing.
see the movie with Brad Pitt? He plays Jesse James. Jesse James was murdered by the coward Bob Ford, something like that.
Yeah, I did watch that movie. I mean, other than the fact of, it talks about the shooting and, and what happened to Jesse James, and how Bob Ford kind of became this person that, he was infamous, but he was kind of he kind of just
snake.
Really wanted what's that?
He was a snake. He was a back shooter.
Yeah, well, literally. But yeah, he kind of absorbed all this glory, and then
he got
just learned that the guy really was kind of a piece of junk.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting because it showed. I think it covered the last winter of Jesse James' life, and I liked the mood, the gray light of winter, and the way they were hiding out. And he was really hunted at that point. He was getting to the end of his rope, and he was going to get it sooner or later. But I thought it was interesting the fact that he disrespected Bob Ford over and over again.
Yeah.
And Bob Ford was a punk. I mean, that's what he had. He deserved it, But in the end, that disrespect. Eventually, Bob Ford idolized him in the beginning, and then he gradually grew sour on him, and then he turned on him. I thought it was just a really interesting. I thought it was a good movie.
Yeah. No, I didn't think it was bad at all. I mean, I have seen it, but I think what I like about reading about Jesse James is you learn that he really just is not a good guy.
No, he wasn't a good guy.
And I mean, as much as at the Northfield raid, when they started shooting, and the town started shooting back at them, the book says that they mostly just fired shots in the air. The gang themselves, they weren't intentionally trying to shoot people. They really just wanted to scare them.
Yeah, they wanted to suppress the fire that was coming in on them and escape. It sounds like.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact is, once Jesse saw that his gang was getting killed, he straight up started on his way out of town. He shot a pedestrian intentionally, and the guy was just crossing the street.
He did it just because he was pissed off, or what?
Pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah. And,
but it's interesting. They planned that whole robbery really poorly. From what I understand, there was like a narrow escape route, and they come in dressed in their riding coats and standing out, and drawing attention. And I mean, that's what I've heard. I don't know if that's true or not, but
no, that is pretty accurate. They loved the fancy clothing that they had. The money that they stole, they put good use to it. They had the latest guns that they could, had the latest clothes. So when they came into town, people were just like, who are these people? They don't look like us. What are they doing? They're not from here. And then, then they actually did more than one approach on the bank, I think. And it gave them away pretty quick. They
stalled a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, they were trying to test it out, I guess. Because what they would do is they would walk up to the bank teller and they would basically say, give me change for a 20 or something like that. And the whole point was for them to see where the bank teller would go to get the money. And so they would send a group in to do that. And in the meantime, they essentially would ride up on the bank while that was happening. But the fact is they rode up on the bank, and I don't want to say they messed up, but they basically did it twice, and it gave them away the first time, so they didn't have enough time to react. By that time, the town was already grabbing guns, and when they went in there, they started getting shots at them. So, yeah. But yeah. So getting off of books, what is your favorite Western movie and why?
Josie Wales was one of my favorite ones.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Clint Eastwood fan, and it's a long movie that just takes you down this path of following the story that it just seems to never get dull. I'd say that's my favorite movie, the favorite Western movie.
Mine, I'd have to say The Wild Bunch is a favorite. I just like it because how gritty it is. Josie Wales is a good one. I do like that one. I think my favorite scene in that is when he shoots the ferry crossing.
Yeah.
With the sharks.
Missouri boat ride.
Yep. So
on the comments, they're talking about Wild Bill. I think Wild Bill is a really interesting historical figure.
Yeah.
For being a real gunfighter, similar to what the Western movies depict,
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, it kind of gets to the point where you don't know exactly what is fact and fiction. You do know that he is a man that existed. You do know he was good with a gun. You do know that he did have a couple shootouts and arguments with people, and then you do know he was assassinated. So,
yeah.
So, but yeah, no, that's awesome. The last question I have here for you. I know it's getting late. We've been on here for almost 2 hours, so thanks for hanging in. If you could choose just one gun from each category, what would it be? Rifle, pistol, and shotgun?
Single action army pistol. I mean, are you talking about in self-defense, or are you talking about in fun?
Well, I mean, we've been running the gamut, but I mean, I'd say Western. Stick with that.
For for more my passion is, it's a single action Army Colt 1873, Winchester 73, and I like the side by side shotguns. I'm not an aficionado of shotguns, the brands and all that, but side by side shotgun, Winchester 73, and Colt single action Army.
Yeah. No, for me, single action Army, I would say rifle is a Henry. I love
like
how the Henry 1860s are built, and I just think it's really cool. It's just a unique gun. The Spencer would be a close second.
Yeah.
Which I do have both of those. So if you want to see me shoot a Spencer, you can always go to my channel. And the side-by-side hammered double would be my next choice, with potentially a 97 pump being a close second on that one.
Is there an historical brand of side-by-side do you like? I don't know them by name, really.
To be honest with you, I mean, I don't have any period correct. I mean, I don't have any original side-by-sides. I have original pumps and I have original levers. I do have an 1887 lever action. I do have a 1920 1897. I have a Model 12 as well, original. But I do not have a original side-by-side, so I can't say what would be my favorite. As far as repros, though, definitely Cimarron's got a really good hammered double. And the only reason I think it's really that good is because I can cock the hammers at the same time.
Huh.
So, but yeah, that's awesome. I think we don't really have a whole lot of questions from the audience. The audience can ask questions, as we're closing up, and maybe we'll even talk about that. But do you have any final questions for me before we sign off, or is there anything you would like to share?
Let me see here. Do you do cowboy action in the middle of summer in Texas when it's hot?
Of course I do.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I like it spring and fall, but middle of summer, I hate wearing those heavy clothes.
That's when the funny part about that is that's when most of the big matches are going on anyway.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
So I mean, I haven't been to End of Trail, but I have been to Texas State, and I am going to Texas State again this year for the first time in 5 years.
Oh, really?
So that'll be an experience.
You gonna make a video out of that?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, but yeah, anything else?
I think that's it for me.
Awesome. Well, just let me scroll here, see if we have any final questions before I tune out. I don't really see any. So I think we're going to go ahead and sign off. I appreciate Tuco for being on. Thank you for your time and effort into this. I know this wasn't the easiest thing to do.
I appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on, and maybe we could actually meet in person at some point.
That'd be neat.
What's that?
I said that would be neat.
Yeah, it would be. But yeah, that's something that we can look forward to. I look forward to your videos. Is there anything? I guess my final question before we sign off is there any other trick shot that you are going to show on camera other than the quad shot? Like, is there something you're going for?
Yeah. I'm working on firing the gun off my hip. I've done it in practice a few times, where I turn the single action Army sideways and I run the hammer across my hip.
Okay.
So I fan it off my hip, and I'm trying to do 3. So I cock it, fire, get off the hip, and then a third one with my fingers. And it's complicated, and you can also shoot yourself with a blank doing that pretty easily. So I won't show it until I get it down.
Yeah. So you do a lot of dry fires before you ever
Oh yeah, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. I wear out guns doing dry fire. I one of my race guns. I took the firing pin out, and all I do is dry fire it because if lots and lots of dry fire is hard on the firing pin.
Yeah.
So I kind of sacrifice that gun, and then when I go to do the live fire, I'll switch over to the gun with the firing pin.
Okay. St. Andrew has one question. Where's that hat from?
The hat is it's a custom hat. It was kind of a plain Jane ugly hat, and I reshaped it on a steam kettle over the stove. I just heated it up, and I increased the pencil roll and the brim, and I put the dents in it, and then I made the hat band, the leather hat band myself, so that I can put it in front of the camera. I tooled there's like a tooling thing around the edge, and I put the brass beads in it and made the concho straps there. So it's one of a kind custom hat that it started out as a Bailey, and I customized it. I'm trying to do a deal with a hat company to copy this hat and sell it at a reasonable price. And we've been talking for a couple of months, and they say they want to do it, but they haven't sent me a prototype yet, so we'll see if it happens.
Awesome. Well, maybe you should reach out to them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to beat on the door too hard. I've reminded them. They say they want to do it, but they just haven't sent me anything. So we'll see. I might go to somebody else if it doesn't happen sooner or later.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we got for tonight, and I'll go ahead and say goodbye to the audience. Thank you for tuning in, and you and I can just say our goodbyes real quick after the live stream. So just hang on 1 second.
Okay.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
See you guys.